Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. We just saw Trump completely obliterate this market. I truly do believe that a lot of the moves being made around Trump right now are very crucial to focus on. Number one was the meme coin, which also completely killed sentiment in the space. It siphoned a ton of liquidity out of the market, causing a mass sell-off as well. Then we saw, of course, Melania Trump coin, which also sold off heavily, taking a bunch of liquidity with it. And now we see Trump continuing to kill this market. I'm going to be addressing this and talking about it. Now, do I think that this is intentional? No, absolutely not. What is happening right now is geopolitical, tension is brewing. And now we have a trade war beginning. And this is causing a lot of panic across the board. Now, of course, the meme coins did not help at all. That's when a lot of things started to kind of go sideways. And now, as you do look at my screen, we could see Bitcoin just under 80K. In the last 7 days, Bitcoin itself is down 20% almost. Ethereum is down about 24%. XRP is down about 24%. And by the way, those are not the worst gains or losses, I should say here. In the last 7 days, Radium is down 57%. Tau is down 35%. And we can see across the board, there are so many losses piling up. And even if we go over here to the gainers and losers in the last 30 days, and we go to the top 500. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of gains across the board, but look at these double-digit losses. I mean, this is rough to see. Most of this market is getting hit in a big way, and that's just the top 500. If we actually go and look at the top 100 itself, which is the highly liquid altcoins, guys, even the highly liquid altcoins, like Chainlink, for example, is down 40+%. This is no joke. This is what a complete washout looks like. Now, to a lot of people, they are wondering, what's going on? Are we in a bear market? Are we in, the beginning stages of a much larger correction? I want to address this in this video, but let's start off with Bitcoin first real quick, because again, we could see those massive losses, even in the last month, down over 22% almost. This is what the 1 year looks like. Guys, we are now back to levels that we haven't seen since going back to roughly the beginning of November. This is a big washout. And what's crazy about all of this is, a lot of the people that are getting shaken out of Bitcoin right now are actually newcomers. If we go over here to this post from Quentin, we could see 74% of Bitcoin losses came from holders who bought in the last month. Newcomers are getting shaken out. And we could actually see that on this chart in terms of, who's actually getting liquidated. This is realized loss by age. Most of those individuals are actually the ones that were buying within the last month in terms of the time frame, which is pretty crazy to think about. But this is also why I've always said that we constantly see a washout of the newcomers, the ones that don't understand how cycles work. And that just causes cascading liquidity effects across the board, because what we do see is liquidations. And right now, if we go back 8 hours ago, I mean, we're probably up past well over, a couple $1 billion in terms of, the actual amount liquidated from the market. And you got to remember that, to a lot of people, that just sounds like a small amount, like, oh, it's $1 billion. Or for an example, like the meme coins, it was like over $10 billion in general. To a lot of people, that doesn't seem like a lot, because even right now, we're at a $2.65 trillion market cap. The issue here is it's not just the amount of money in, liquidations that matters. It's across the board, which means you're starting to see liquidity being wiped out from a lot of these projects that actually don't have strong liquidity, which causes even more downside pressure. But this overall sell-off isn't just about liquidations. It's not just about Bitcoin, right? Like, we could look at this and say, oh, well, the crypto market's going into a bear market. It's not just crypto. When we look at stocks, the S&P 500 is down 4.7% over the last couple of days. We're talking about, the S&P 500 itself going from 6,100 roughly all the way back down to like 5,800. And right now, this is not open. This isn't live trading. We're going to watch what happens, during the open. But also even the NASDAQ down 7 point almost 6%, going from roughly 22,200 all the way down to about 20,500. A massive sell-off over the last couple days. And then, of course, we do have the Dow Jones down about 4.11%, going all the way back to roughly the end of January. A lot of this price action has been one big chop fest since roughly, December, January. Even when we look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin, and we're going to talk a little bit about all of these scribbles over here and what I'm really kind of looking at here. But Bitcoin technically hasn't had a daily candle close that's been bullish since going all the way back to December 17th and the 18th. In fact, this has all been resistance up here while we await for a breakout. And what ended up happening was, well, guess what? We rejected off of resistance multiple times, started to chop to the downside, and then we lost our support. In fact, we lost our support on Tuesday, February 25th. And then after that, it was just downhill from there. And this is also why I told you guys to stay focused on these liquidity wicks, because once they are lost, it's not going to stop Bitcoin from creeping all the way down to the low 80K region. But now we're actually losing 80K. And the big focus here is the CME gap on Bitcoin, which is right around roughly 77.4K to about 81.2K. This is almost completely filled. And the thing that I'm really looking at here on Bitcoin and most of these markets, because you got to remember, this is a big effect across the board. We're seeing stocks selling off heavy. We're seeing crypto selling off heavy at the same exact time that the dollar is actually pumping. Now you might say, well, the dollar actually really isn't pumping all that much. We went from roughly 106.2 to about roughly 107. Almost 4. But you got to remember that this is the reserve currency of the world. This is the US dollar. So when this thing starts to move to the upside, risk on assets all of a sudden flip bearish. But it's also flipping bearish at a time where we see Trump, talking about tariffs again. And we already saw what happened with the tariffs originally, right? They caused a big sell-off in the market. In fact, they caused a massive shakeout. And now we have here a global sell-off in stocks continued from Asia into Europe on concern that US President Donald Trump's planned tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China will hurt economic growth. Here's your evening briefing. Now, also, if we go over here, we could see the full breakdown. Breaking, Trump announces that 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico and 10% on China will go into effect as scheduled, March 4th. So this is exactly why everyone is starting to sell. They are panicking. They are getting out. They're getting shaken out. And, this is a post from real Donald Trump on his social media app. And we could see a complete breakdown of what he's talking about here in terms of the tariffs. Just really kind of outlining a few things. I don't want to waste your guys' time. I want to really kind of stay on topic here. But the big problem here is that these tariffs, they shake the market. In fact, they scare the market, because what this really is the beginning of a trade war. And then we saw from CNBC, China vows to retaliate as necessary after Trump threatens another 10% tariff hike. And when China is, threatening that they're going to retaliate, and we hear Trump saying, oh, well, it's not just China, we're also announcing 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, which, by the way, Canada and Mexico also said that they are going to retaliate. All of a sudden, you see a big conflict. You see a massive conflict here that's going to shake the markets. It's going to affect economic growth, which means, guess what? We start to see a bearish economy. We start to see a possible collapse incoming, just like the financial collapse of 2008. And a lot of people still have PTSD from that time. So what do they think about doing? They think about dumping stocks. They think about dumping crypto. They think about selling everything. They want to hodl dollars, which is why the dollar is also surging to the upside. Now, the big question here is, should we be scared? Should we be worried? The answer is we should always be worried, right? We should always be worried that we're on the, cusp of a bear market, because at the end of the day, what goes up must come down. We know that this is the case. The issue here is that I have been preaching to take profits along the way to the upside. And to a lot of people, and I actually remember these comments when I was talking about even XRP in this case, I said, you never know what's going to be guaranteed. We don't know if XRP is going to go to $5. We don't know if XRP is going to go to $10. But that's why we take profits along the way. We don't sell the whole bag, obviously, but we take calculated profits. That way we pay ourselves for our time in this market. You should always take profits, and you should not scold anyone on taking profits, because days like this do happen. Now, do I think that this is the beginning of the bear market? Do I think that this is the bear market? No, I believe that markets are scared. I believe that markets are panicking. I think that markets are acting impulsively. And I do think that a lot of people are getting shaken out. Now, in my overall opinion, when it comes to Bitcoin, we are watching this macro trend going all the way back to September of 2023. The thing that I'm looking for here is something very similar back in, August of 2024. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm expecting us to chop here. I'm expecting for us to actually be a little bit bottomed here. We're probably going to pump to the upside a little bit, and then we're going to sell off, retesting this trend line before we continue to the upside again. So that's why I am expecting us to touch this bottom trend line in the CME gap. We have that nice little run up to roughly like 92K. And then we sell back off, touching the trend line once more before we finally break out. Now, don't focus on the timeline down here like April, May, or, into June. This could happen over the course of, just a few days, because I am on the daily, chart here. So what would that look like? Well, if we were going to actually have that sell off today, we probably would touch this bottom trend line today, depending on how, big the sell off on the Dow is, on the Nasdaq, and even on the S&P 500 during the futures once we do start to see that open. And then what happens is we have that touch, things start to bounce a little bit more. Market looks pretty good for the next couple days. Bitcoin rebounds to like 92K, sweeping liquidity from the upside. Then we sell off once more, touching the trend line around 80K, again in that gap. A lot of demand there. Then we finally bounce again, maybe chop a little bit more. Then we finally get that big break to the upside. And on that break to the upside, the goal here, the target here is not breaking into new all-time highs. No, what we want to actually see on Bitcoin, and I've always stressed this, is bullish structure. Right now, Bitcoin is actually in a bearish structure. And what we want to see from Bitcoin is we want to see some higher lows here. We want to see some higher highs, whether that be on the higher time frame or the lower time frame. And what do I mean by that? Well, if we go to the weekly, for an example on the weekly, what we really want to see here on Bitcoin, okay, is that if we're going to touch that trend line, okay, and this looks a little bit different on the weekly, it looks something like this. If we are going to retest that bottom trend line, what we want to see is us to maintain the low wherever it is on this bottom trend line, or wherever the bottom is on this weekly candle. We want to maintain that low. And the next couple weeks going forward, we want to start to see some higher lows being formed and some higher highs. Very similar. And if we go back to the daily, just to kind of show you guys real quick, just like back here in March all the way up until September. And it took a long time for this to actually, I would argue it took a long time for us to actually see the structure form, because it took from March all the way up to September. Now, do I think that it's going to take 177 days? No, I don't believe so, because technically speaking, we have already been selling off for over 73 days, and I don't think that we have another 104 days plus to really kind of recreate that same structure, taking us all the way into roughly like June of this year. No, I don't believe that's the case. But what I will say is what we want to see is something very similar to like the August September price action, where we have a strong low, major liquidity wick, followed by a higher low here, and then we finally flip some of these highs. For an example, on the daily, we did not close above the daily here until like October, and in the end of October is when we finally got a strong close above this. But for the most part, we want to take out those highs. We want to create bullish structure. September was a big signal that bullish structure is now forming. We have a higher low. All we needed was a higher high. And technically, we got that towards the end of September when we created this high, going off of the lower time frame high from the end of August. And that's exactly what we're looking at here when it comes to Bitcoin. What we want to create is a higher low, and then we want to take out this high from roughly the end of February, which is right around, like 99.6K almost. So $100,000 would be that high that we really want to see on Bitcoin. But for the most part, price action is not too surprising here. In fact, what would surprise me now is more bearish price action at a time where the crypto fear and greed index is sitting at 21. Fearful levels. This is kind of crazy because, again, when we think about where we were at just at the end of November, it's shocking how quick this market has flipped. And even if we go over to the crypto fear and greed index from Alternative, if we look at this, we're actually now in extreme fear levels at 16. Yesterday, we were at 10. Last week, we were at 55. And last month, we were at 72. But what's even crazier is that if we look at the max chart here and we can see our low from, yesterday and even today, what's crazy about this is that this is the most significant fearful level on this chart since going all the way back to July of 2022, in the middle of a bear market after Luna collapsed, before even FTX collapsed. So to think that we are at bearish levels that we haven't seen since going all the way back to even before FTX imploded, that speaks volumes on how scared this market actually is. Now, I don't know about you guys, but typically when we see fear like this, it does mean that we are close to a bottom on Bitcoin. Don't act impulsively. Don't get ahead of yourselves just yet. Watch for bullish structure to actually form on Bitcoin before you do get bullish. But in my opinion, I am not, certain right now that this market is in a bear market. I'm actually certain that we are still in a bull market, that this is just one big market shakeout caused by Trump talking about tariffs with the market overreacting, and only time will tell if I'm correct on that. But my money is where my mouth is. I'm still invested in this market. Yes, I have taken profits along the way, but I'm still significantly, in this market right now. And I'll remain there until I think that we are getting into a bear market. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely have a like, subscribe, set notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.